here. In this video, we're going to kind of build on what we did in the last video, but we're going to try to do it without having to draw the boxes every time. You can keep drawing the boxes if you want. Some people like to draw the boxes. It's a very visual way to see things. But if you are getting kind of tired of drawing boxes, here is a way to think about it, which might help you to avoid having to always draw the boxes. So let's look at this first one. We're going to try to write this function in factored form. So what we need to do is we know that if it's starting with x squared, okay, if it's starting with x squared, we know that the only way to get the x squared, this is my paper from last week, just referring back to it. The only way to get x squared is x times x, which means both of our factors are going to be starting with an x and an x. So I am going to start by writing that. Now I just have to figure out what two numbers have to go in here. Now, I also know from what we did in the last video that whatever these two numbers are going to be these two numbers right here, and they have to multiply to equal this last number, which means that whatever these two numbers are, I know that they have to multiply to equal 12. So over here, I'm going to say multiplies to 12. Then I'm going to start to think about all the things that multiply to be 12. So I have 1 and 12, negative 1 and negative 12. Because remember, I also have to think about the negatives because that could be the key to how I'm going to factor this. And then I have 2 and 6, negative 2 and negative 6, 3 and 4, and then negative 3 times negative 4. Because remember, again, a negative times a negative makes the positive 12. Now, I'm going to go through and I'm going to look for, if you think back to what we were doing here, we always picked the pair. Once we had all the multiplying ones, we always picked the pair that ended up adding to be this middle number. So like here we picked the 3 and the 4 because when we multiplied, then we'd have the 3x and the 4x, which gave us the 7x. So which of these options over here is going to give us two numbers that are going to multiply to be 12 and also add to be 8? And that would be the 6 and the 2. And whatever those two numbers ended up being, like here, we said a 3 and a 4 was what would work. That ends up being these two numbers here. So really, we could just say x plus 2, x plus 6, and be done with it. Okay? So once you think of something that multiplies to be 12 and adds to 8, you're pretty much just ready to write your factors. Let's try this next one. So here, I know that I can start with an x and an x because that's how I'm going to get my x squared. Now I have to think about what numbers are going to go there and there. So whatever they are, they're going to have to multiply to be 18. So if they multiply to be 18, I'm going to have 1 and 18, negative 1 and negative 18, 2 and 9, negative 2 and negative 9, 3 and 6, negative 3 and negative 6. Now this works because this option right here also adds to be negative 9. So I'm going to have x minus 3 and x minus 6. Now, if I wanted to multiply this back out and check just to make sure, I could also check without using the boxes, just like in the second video from last week. I'm going to take the x and I'm going to multiply x times x and x times negative 6. So x times x is x squared minus 6x. And then negative 3 times x and negative 3 times negative 6 is a positive 18. These two combine together, so I get x squared minus 9x plus 18. Okay? So this is how I write it in factored form. And if I wanted to check my answer, just to make sure that when I multiply this out, I actually get back there to the beginning, I can do this just to double check and make sure that it works. But this is in factored form right here. So let's look to see down here. The only way that I'm going to get x squared is doing x times x will give me the x squared. I know that whatever these two numbers are going to have to multiply to be negative 24. So let's start thinking of all the ways to get negative 24. I can have 1 times negative 24 or negative 1 times a positive 24. 2 times negative 12 or negative 2 times a positive 12. I could have 3 times negative 8 or negative 3 times a positive 8. Or 4 times negative 6 or negative 4 times a positive 6. All of these are different ways it could multiply to be negative 24. Now the one that's also going to add to be a positive 10 is this one right here, negative 2 plus 12. And so I'm going to have x minus 2 and x plus 12. And if I wanted to double check this, I could just multiply all the parts, the x times both of those and the negative 2 times both of those and combine the middle, just to make sure that when I do that, I get back to where I started. But this is what it would look like in factored form. Okay, now the last one, same, I'm going to start writing my factors, and the only way to get x squared is x times x, gives me the x squared. I know that my numbers, whatever is here and here, is going to have to multiply to be a negative 32. So that could be 1 times negative 32 or a negative 1 times a positive 32. 2 times negative 16 or negative 2 times a positive 16. Or 4 times negative 8 or negative 4 times a positive 8. And the option of these that's going to give me a negative 4, when I add them together, is 4 plus negative 8. So I have a positive 4 and a negative 8, and that's my answer. Now, a common question is that I always get, Mrs. Goodness, do I have to write all of these out? What if I just know? Like, what if I'm up here looking at this one, I'm like, oh, well, 6 times 2 is 12, and if you add them, you get 8, so it's just 6 and 2. Do I really have to write down all of these? The answer is no, you definitely do not have to write all of these. This is just a way to organize your thoughts if you're having trouble coming up with what the numbers would be. But if you can just think in your head, if it just comes to you before writing them all, you don't have to write them all. Or if you get halfway through and you write 2 times 6, like, oh, that's it. You don't have to keep writing them. Okay? This is just a way to help you come up with these numbers. But if you have those numbers in your head already and you know what they are, there's no reason to do all of this. Okay? So that is how you can factor without using the boxes. It's the exact same concept as with the boxes. It's just without the boxes to help you visualize it. You're just kind of doing more of the visualizing in your head. So feel free to keep using the boxes if you want, but if you don't want to, here's another option. Hope this helps. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Otherwise, I will see you at the Google Meet, and we can answer questions then too. Thanks. Bye.